Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. The Indian Prime Minister Modi was in Indian Ocean the other day, and once again, his tone while addressing the naval officer and the soldiers were aggressive against Pakistan. They are talking about Sindoor too, and this is not the first time that the Modi has said that. But if we just go back a few weeks and see the statements of the political leadership of the India as well as the military leadership of the India, and on the daily basis we see on the social media that they do talk of Sindoor too. Naturally, the army chief of Pakistan and the field marshal, while addressing the passing out parade at Kakul, Abbottabad the other day, he has made it transparently clear to the Indians as well as to the Afghan leadership that if the Indians once again, if they want to test Pakistan and they want to attack on Pakistan, Pakistan is very much prepared for it, and this time the response would be far more powerful than in the May that the Pakistan has given to the Indians. So what is happening in the region, and the statements, the provocative statements that constantly coming from India, they are going to destabilize not only the South Asian region but the entire world if something happens once again in this region. And I'll be also talking on the Pakistan ceasefire, which is a very fragile ceasefire, and let us see what is going to happen in coming few days. I have a very prominent guest with me, Brigadier retired Farooq Hameed. He's a security and political analyst. Thank you very much, sir. Please tell me that do you see any fresh attack from Indian side on Pakistan?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Waheed Saab, for inviting me to your program.
You're welcome.
Yes, we're hearing about this narrative of Operation Sindoor 2 for quite many months now, after the May humiliation of the Indian armed forces. So, and I would say that if they are bent upon Operation Sindoor 2.0, then go ahead. You're most welcome. I think the armed forces of Pakistan are right now much more prepared, having learned a lot from obviously the May 2025 conflict with India, the 5-day conflict. So we've gone much ahead, very far from what our operational capability were in May this year. Like for example, Pakistan has established the Army Rocket Force. It's a new concept. It's a new type of strategic operational planning, strategic operation involved of the various categories of missiles, short range, medium, long range, super long range, based on our experiences of the May conflict. So my point is that presently we are facing an Operation Sindoor 2.0, but not in a direct form, but an indirect form. And that is what the Indians have launched, and very aggressively, and the whole world is watching it, and we are fighting back very strongly, and many of our soldiers have laid down their lives. This is the terrorism part of Operation Sindoor 2, which they have launched via Afghanistan through their proxy groups. Dozens of them over there. They've been paid, they've been trained, they've been funded. So we face that. Even today, in Deir Ismail Khan, there was an attack in which, as I read on the social media, and we lost a few lives. So Operation Sindoor 2 is in the form of increased terrorism against Pakistan, our two frontline provinces, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. But what has come as a shock to them, and I'm sure the Indians must be very happy, very unhappy with the Doha agreement between Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban government, whereby uh, through the mediation of Qatar, and of course our all-weather and all-round friend, the Turks, friends in Turkey, who have got this agreement through between Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban government, in which they have committed that there will be no terrorism from their soil, from the Afghan soil into Pakistan. And in the coming weeks, there will be more of such uh, joint bilateral meetings whereby the mechanisms for monitoring the terrorism uh, attacks in Pakistan will be fine-tuned, and I'm sure is going to we're going to see definitely uh, improvement in the situation, provided provided the Afghan Taliban government is sincere to the cause, provided the Afghan Taliban government meets its international obligations and, of course, its commitments to regional security, to international law, and respect for the sovereignty and security of its neighbor. And what a stroke of, I would say, irony of history that a few years ago it was Pakistan which facilitated the Doha Agreement between the American and the Afghan Taliban, and it was Pakistan which uh, created, which helped and to create conditions after this agreement for the Afghan Taliban to enter Kabul. So I would say that we owe them a lot in the sense that uh, we facilitated them. We facilitated the people of Afghanistan in the sense for a better future, for a better economy, for better government, and for recognition by the international community. But in many respects, the Afghan Taliban government displayed, as I said, a lack of leadership and a lack of how to survive uh, in the international environment. Uh, so let us see whether now they can meet their obligations towards Pakistan and respond in the same sincerity that Pakistan has been dealing and helping the Afghan Taliban, right from the days of the jihad, the Afghan jihad against the Soviet Union occupation forces in Afghanistan. Had it not been for Pakistan support as a frontline state, obviously backed by the Saudis and the United States, Afghanistan would have been in a very, very bad shape. We created conditions, we gave sacrifices, and which led to uh, the ouster and the withdrawal of Soviet occupation forces from Afghanistan. And then even, as I said, the Doha Accord again, the withdrawal and the uh, exit of the US and NATO forces from Kabul 3, 4 years ago. So they owe us a lot in the sense that 4 million Afghan refugees, 1 or 2 million of the descendants born and bred in Pakistan, raised in Pakistan in the last 5 decades. And it is sad, unfortunate, but I think it's a correct decision by the government of Pakistan that enough is enough. We cannot keep people, cannot further host
Okay. Mr.
Afghan.
Farooq, okay, I would like to, sorry to interrupt you. Uh, in fact, I wanted to, discuss the Indian side on the first time, phase, and then, the Afghan side on. But anyhow, you elaborate, in a very detailed manner. Uh, you have explained to our viewers that what role Pakistan has been playing, for supporting the Afghan people as well as these Taliban. I just want to ask you a question that uh, once this, the initial fragile ceasefire document was signed between Afghanistan and Pakistan, the this interim defense minister of Afghanistan gave, certain statements regarding the Durand Line. So, what is your opinion on that?
The Afghans have never accepted the Durand Line, the international border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. They're always harping on that old narratives of maybe 100 years, you know, even before 1947, about the Durand Line. Whereas I think the Durand Line is a closed chapter. It is a thing of the past. And I was surprised as to why the Qatar government, their official communique, why on the request on the Taliban, why did they delete the word border from the communique? Because actually, this is now the officially recognized border, the international border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. You see, we
So
spent
do
millions of
you think
dollars.
that it must have been highlighted this side by the Taliban to protect themselves from the criticism of the Afghan people, that the damages being caused by the armed forces of Pakistan, uh, and the terrorist safe havens which were being hit by our aerial bombardment as well as our forces, that might be one of the reasons that Afghans wanted to divert the attention of the Afghan people.
Yes, that is very much possible. But let me make that point. I think the Qatar government wanted to soften the Afghan Taliban government. They wanted to cool them down. That okay, no, as long as they're committed to a ceasefire, as long they're committed to ensuring that there'll be no terrorist activity from their soil into Pakistan. So if this is a contentious and issue of the whether it's a Durand line or now the Afghan-Pakistan international border. So probably they, adjusted or accommodated the Afghan-Taliban government request. But one thing is for
But do you
sure.
can you trust them? Can you trust these Taliban? Because whatever
No,
you have
I'm not 100%.
highlighted initially, that was what sacrifices Pakistan and its government and its people have been bearing because of these Talibans and Afghan nationals who have been living here. But how they have responded to us, they were supporting the terrorists which are creating trouble in our areas, and they are supporting them continuously just for the sake of dollars from the Indians.
Yes, Afghan people who are here since many decades, they were not even involved in facilitating the terrorist activities of the Afghan-based terrorists or even their Indian handlers inside Pakistan, but they were also involved in criminal activities, drugs, smuggling, and so much illegal activities. And majority of them, uh, in fact, this is our fault of governance of the past governments that they were given Pakistani identity cards. They traveled abroad from Pakistan on Pakistan ID card, Pakistani issued passports, and were involved in criminal activities in other parts of the world and was looked down upon not as Afghan but as Pakistani citizen. So there's a big, I think we need to put our own house in order in the sense, and I support this government decision that if the Iranians can send back 1.3 million Afghan refugees to back to India because they found the Afghans not at all trustworthy
To
during the
Afghanistan.
recent to back to Afghanistan because the Iranian leadership found that they were involved. The Afghans were in Iran who had been given, who had refugee status just like as in Pakistan. They were involved in anti-state activities against the Iranian government in collusion with the Indian and with Israeli intelligence. So if they have sent them back, I think Pakistan has done the right decision. We should ensure, and I'm glad that 27 refugee camps in KP, around Peshawar, etc., in those areas, they've been closed down, and the government has been told, provincial government, ensure that they are repatriated, and of course, with respect, because they're women also, children also, they go back to the country, and we've been seeing a lot of videos. In Karachi is one of the biggest, emerged as the biggest hub of these Afghan settlers, these Afghan refugees, and those very huge settlements, they're now being uh, bulldozed. The people have left, the Afghans have left, and so, and Karachi, as you know, for the last many decades, It had become a hub of criminal activities, smuggling and terrorism activities, basically because of these Afghans over there. So I think we're going through a very important phase whereby we are ensuring our own internal security, we are ensuring our own internal stability, and the blunders that we made, uh, they've been rectified now.
Kindly tell me that how you see the statements of the new KPCM, because he was, issuing certain statements regarding these operations as well as relations with Afghanistan, and they are also planning to hold, peace jirga in Khyber on 25th of this month. So how you see all these things on the one side, and addition to that, there was a meeting headed by the Prime Minister where the Army Chief, the Field Marshal was also there, other senior people were there, the Chief Ministers were there, but KP was represented by a former finance advisor, Muzammar Aslam, who, in fact, people, they were making criticism that he doesn't belong to KP. He is from Karachi, so do you think that these kinds of political tactics or strategies uh, can help us to eradicate the terrorism and the terrorists from Pakistani land?
In the first place, the new KP chief minister is a commoner, and he's from the tribal areas. So he can act as a very good bridge, a solid bridge between to generate confidence between the federal government, our security forces, and the our and the people in the tribal area, which are very disturbed right now. Secondly, I agree that he should have been in that meeting, chaired by the Prime Minister, where the Army Chief and all the governors and the Chief Ministers were there. Even the Chief Minister of Gilgit Baltistan and Azad Kashmir were there. So he should have been there also, despite the fact that
But I think that he was complaining about his meeting with
Imran
Imran
Khan.
Khan in yeah.
Yeah. You see, he must understand that keep politics aside. If you want to do politics, keep on doing your politics. Nobody stops you from that. But when it comes to matter of national security, matter of national importance, our sovereignty, and KP being a frontline province, he should have been there. Despite the fact that he doesn't have a full cabinet now, he's not fully functional, but he should have been there because he's the chief minister, he's been elected, and he's been given oath by the governor of KP. But I read one of his statements in which he said that as far as external aggression is concerned, he will stand by the federal government, but will not support any operation inside. Now, again, I feel that as the chief minister of the frontline state, as the chief executive of the province of KP, he has no choice but to work totally in collaboration, in cooperation with the federal government and with the federal agencies, because it is not only the enforcement agencies in KP who are responsible for internal security, internal law and order, and obviously the KP police is the frontline agency in the fight against terrorism. Even today, as I said, in DI Khan, they attacked probably, uh, in fact, every second day, the terror groups are attacking the police post and the policemen and the police headquarters and all those areas. So he has to, if it is his responsibility as the chief minister, and it is for good governance, for the safety of his own people, for the safety of his own law enforcement agency, to cooperate with the federal government. Had I been in the federal government, I might have decided to take him along in the with the delegation that met the Afghan Taliban government in Doha, because after all, we need our Pashtun brothers to be also represented, because that would have open better lines of communication with the Pashtuns across the Pak-Afghan border. So I think that sort of an arrangement should also be now brought in.
But
The
I think,
federal
yeah,
government,
yes, you're right. You're right. But I think that this is what the PTI leadership has been saying, that
You
we
see,
should
the
hold
point is the federal
we should
government
hold that.
and the
Yeah, we
and the KP government must work together as a one entity, because if they work together in total harmony, in total cooperation, in total spirit of accommodation for
one of
each
their
other.
demands, one of their demands were that we should hold the talks with the Taliban. So I think that this process has already started. So one of their point has been accepted, and the federal government is working on it. Coming back to India, INS Vikrant, the Modi was there, and then he was addressing, and naturally, the tone and the language and the body language, it was all. We know that Bihar elections are very close, and this is all is being done to satisfy the internal public, the voters, that he might be interested to win the elections. But on the other hand, how you see the strength of the Indian Navy vis-a-vis Pakistan Navy?
You see, only a few days ago, when these terrorist activities were at their peak, that came the news, obviously from the Indian side, that Indian aircraft carrier with some warships are moving towards Pakistani waters, in the Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean, and they're going to, giving the impression that they're going to target Karachi port. But the very next day, we heard the news that the Pakistan Navy is out there in full strength to ensure that they uh, defend our maritime frontiers, our maritime sovereignty to the best of their ability. And this is not the Pakistan Navy that we of the past few decades ago, when we had just a few destroyers, a few submarines, something like that. It is now a very potent naval force with so much of constituents. Like, for example, we have a fleet of submarines, fleet of naval aviation warplanes, aircraft, surveillance planes, uh, and then uh, sea helicopters, and then we have a whole new fleet of frigates and destroyers that we've been getting from China, from Turkey, from Romania. So this is, and of course, missile boats. And let me not forget the Pakistan Navy's very important capability of launching long-range missiles, which can be which can be tipped with nuclear warheads. And that's the capability of the triad. Whether it's the Air Force, which can fire those long-range missiles from the air, or the ground forces, of course, the cruise missile, the long-range missile of all categories, and then it's the Navy, which can, which has given that very, very strong capability to Pakistan, a big deterrence. So I don't think that India will ever dare to come into Pakistani water, because they know that if there may be repetition of a much more intensity when it comes to fighting the Pakistan Navy.
Final question, Mr. Farooq. Do you think that the trade facilities that we have been offering to the Afghans, now they should be regularized like any international border, like any international trade rules and regulations, so that Pakistani financial interest as well as the commercial and the trade interest should also be protected, because we cannot afford a parallel economy where which is not being documented. And then naturally our borders, they have been open for a long time, where we could not generate extra revenue for our own self.
The situation has improved a lot in the last few years when Pakistan has regularized the border security management, the issue of visas, permits, and whatever documentation is required, legal documentation, to encourage the flow of trade from Afghanistan into Pakistan, and then uh, abroad. Like, for example, the Afghan traveling trade has been already there for many, many decades now. Similarly, they want transit trade one way to India via Wagah. And see how Pakistan has tried to facilitate the Afghan economy and to boost their trade activities across the Pakistan-Afghan border. So many new crossing points have been established in Waziristan. Obviously, we have the old Torkham, we have Chaman. The international trade corridor that was established many years ago in the entire Waziristan to open up that area for trade activities. And of course, so that Pakistan also gets a chance to have a connectivity with the Central Asian Republic. But then the point again is that the Afghans have acted very, very irresponsibly, extremely irresponsible behavior from their side. They have promoted smuggling, they promoted drug trade, drug, and of course, a lot of weapons for the terrorists into Pakistan, taking advantage of this cross-border trade. I personally feel that we should not be in a hurry to open the Afghan transit trade, which has been suspended for the last few days, or other border crossing point. Let us let us see how the responsible the Afghan Taliban government behaves to meet its commitment and obligation of stopping terrorism from its soil. If we suddenly give them all these facilities again, and we find in the coming days the situation is almost the same again, and they're still, because the Indian factor is still not finished. The Indians are there, and they're very much in control in Afghanistan. The Taliban may not be having that kind of control, and the Indians are still having a free for all situation over there. So let us not be in a hurry and a little more time and keep these trade activities suspended. Yes, our people will also suffer, but then for the sake of national security and for the sake of uh, ensuring that this cross-border terrorism is really stopped by the Afghan Taliban government, let's suspend it for some time. When the situation improves genuinely, then obviously go, we can restore the transit trade activity and other cross-border trade between Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Farooq Hameed, security and political analyst. You have enlightened our viewers on a very important issues regarding India and Afghanistan. Thank you very much for joining the show.